have a quick introduction to Remask. It's a Topaz Labs tool. It's one I use for all my cutouts. It's superior to just about anything I've ever found. And the way it works is everything that's going to be green, it's going to keep. Everything that's going to be blue, which is what I've selected right now, it's going to do an interpretation on. And then everything that's going to be red, it's going to throw away. So what I want to do is outline my subject in this blue. And just keep on going with fairly wide. I keep a fairly wide brush for this. Best, I find it to be best to do with a fairly wide brush. Now I'm going to take this fill. I'm going to fill it in with red where I don't want it to do anything. This little part right here is a mistake. Is just shot through the coat. I'm going to actually correct that a different way later by just doing a clone brush and filling that in. I don't want to cut that out. If I wanted to, I could make it blue, and I could then come back in and fine tune it. All right, so first we're going to do a compute mask on what we just did. Now, because of this area here and the cane, this area here didn't do a real good job. The cane it did a pretty good job on, but it still needs some fine tuning. You can see some places where the background is bleeding through. Didn't cut out exactly right. Now that I changed it to this by moving this recovery slider, or by changing to the solid color background, you can see where the background that's there is peeking through. What we want to do is change this recovery slider. Well, this recovery slider adds some details, and I'll show you even more how that works on the next photo that we do. For this one, I'm going to make a recovery slider about 60, and now I'm going to zoom in on the photo, and we're going to change around the edges. Because I'm filling with yellow, I can see where the yellow is bleeding through. Those are places where I want to go back and now say, I want to make this green and make a smaller brush. I said, no, actually we're keeping that information. And we're keeping this information right here. And it'll go back and do a reinterpretation every time. Now there's a little spot here. That's the background. So we're going to paint that red so that it goes away. And, wait, I messed that up. Undo. And actually, I think what I'm going to do is take that entire part of the strap off. But I'm not going to be able to do it right here in Remask. So I'm going to take this one off too, so I'm not worried about that. So now we're painting green here to keep that part of it. There's just a faint hit. I don't know if you can see it on the video. There's a faint bit of the background that's showing here. And then a faint bit of the background that's showing in through the hat. A little bit into the beard, we're going to paint that, and then we're going to paint red here to get rid of any hangers on of the gray background we had. Paint green where we want to keep data. A little bit of background that peeked through when we did that. I'll go down the left side first here. Camera left, that is. Painting red, painting red. You can see where it thought the brocade was a little bit of the background when it actually wasn't, because it's kind of the same color. So Remask got fooled a little bit right here. I'm going to take that back out, add this back in. This is some pretty small detail that's being added in by Remask, so it could be easily left alone, but for completion's sake I'm doing it. Now see how the finger is slightly yellow? It's because it's not totally there. Take out that little bit, take out that little bit. Oops, painted the wrong color. So I undid. I want to be green. I'm painting right at the top of the cane. And as I said, it did a really good job on the cane. I'm impressed. Now this little spot I said before, let's go ahead and make it transparent. Now, just because I've done all the rest of this doesn't mean I can't go back in here and paint in some purple again. We're going to paint in some purple right here over this line. Now that alone won't be enough to make it go away. So I need to give it a little bit of red to tell it that gray is not something to keep. So I changed it down to a pixel width of 1. And I'm just painting in a little bit of red in here to tell the computer I don't want to see any of that. I'm going to go back up to a little bit larger brush again, and we'll go back up the camera right side and do the same things. See how the fingers got really mangled by it? We're going to take in and we're going to paint in where we want to keep on the fingers. And then we'll paint out where we don't want to keep on the fingers, which is right here, right between the fingers. This is the coat. So that goes away, but then this all goes away. All that gray right there goes away. Now there's still some small details here that are not perfect, but that's okay because in our final image it won't matter. I'm just doing as much completion for completion's sake as I can. And if I'd lit the background better, I would have an easier time of doing this. But there's a deep shadow in the original in the background. All this is gray, it goes away. And it went away magically. Sweet, that worked well. Alright, do this. Going up the right side. I don't see any more yellow bleeding through. And that's it for that one. Now for our other image that we're going to do, we'll show a little more of the power of Remask. We're also going to do the feet this time, and we're going to use the recovery tool to recover some of this hair detail that's in here. But first we want to go through and do our outline just like we did before. And I'm coloring in really liberally down here in the hair, where we're going to have lots of little details of the hair going on. Down here and outline the feet. Now because of the color of the floor, it's going to get really tricky around the feet. It's going to look like a mess, but we're going to fix it in our fine-tuning stage. If you're shooting this completely on white, it wouldn't be as big of an issue, but I didn't, so there we go. We're going to fill in the whole magnifying glass as well. This is my friend Nicole doing her Velma cosplay. Fill in red where we're not going to want to keep, where we know we're not going to want to keep. Do a compute mask. Now the first thing I'm going to do is move this recovery slider. I'm going to slide it way up to 94 this time. I'm going to zoom in. We're going to start at the head where all that hair is. Need a green brush. And I know that this part of the hair I want to keep through here. But by changing this to red right here, I'm going to paint red in here. And it's going to take out, maybe even a smaller brush. It's going to take out all those other little details around in there, but it's still leaving some hairs, if you can see them. Still leaving some of the minor little hair details that are going on here, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I want it to do. All right, now we're going to go to the magnifying glass. Get the handle of it in our hand properly. Painting green in there. And now this whole piece around the magnifying glass, brought in some of the background that time, so we're going to paint that back out again. A little tricky for it because it looks like the magnifying glass was reflecting white as well, and I want the reflection kept but not the actual white background. So we're just going to go really slowly up and around the curve of the magnifying glass. On the side now. We brought it back in. I'm going to leave some of the shading from what was the background in the magnifying glass so it still looks like it's got some texture to it inside. And it still has some shading inside of it for when we do the final, when I do the final image off of this. So now we're going to go down camera left side. Slide the slider down. Camera left looks pretty good so far. Down to the skirt. And we'll come over the other side. Now let's go look at the other side. It did a really good job of the hair separation here, if you can notice. paint back in this. And this here. Painting back in green where we want to keep. Red where we don't. Green where we want to keep. Fingernails oftentimes fool it with a white background especially. Red where we don't want to keep around the skirt now. Right there, right there, right there. We're going to keep here, we're going to keep here. And now we're going to go down towards the feet and get the mistakes that it didn't understand what I wanted down here. It's not really a mistake of the program, it's that it didn't understand what I wanted. I had to paint in some purple right here because I didn't get purple up high enough on my initial paint. This is a plug that's on the wall behind her that it's trying to interpret as being part of her, but it's not. So we just painted it back out again. I did a little too much there, so we're undoing. And we're going back and doing it again. There we go. One there and one there. Alright, now we get to the feet, and this is where it's going to get a little messy. In and around her feet. I'm going to keep the shoe. It lost a lot of the shoe on the interpret, but we're painting back in green where the shoe is, so that it'll bring it back. This part is not shoe, because Velma wears flats. We leave the high heels to Daphne. Right around the foot. Now some of this is okay to leave because I'm going to have to put a contact shadow in where her foot is and all those things on the final version. So we're going to leave a little bit at the bottom of the foot. Come over here to the other foot. The same problems. Things that reflected from the wood into the orange stocking and back and vice versa. Crawl back up her leg there. Perfect. Alright, I think we're done with her as well. So there's our cutout. And we click OK, and we are done.